what's up, everybody? You're listening to the Talk About It podcast. I'm Lauren Fulmer.
I'm Victor Dantas.
And today, we have another special guest lined up. We have Steve GLASGOW. Steve, how are you?
Doing good. How are you guys?
Good.
Good.
Good to see you. Thanks for having me.
Good
Absolutely,
having you here.
man. Appreciate you taking time out of your busy schedule and come chill with us for a little bit. We'll see where it goes.
Only because you asked.
All right. Well, hey, I appreciate it when you did say you would do it. I was excited. One thing with this podcast, we've been having some guests come on, tell us their story. And one thing that's cool, as we all know, everyone's got a pretty cool story along the way. And it's just here, we're going to laugh a little, learn a lot, and just have some fun and talk about it.
I like it. Let's do it.
Well, Steve, let's start off just kind of talk about yourself. Tell us, just a little intro. Tell us so the folks listening and ourselves, Victor, can learn a little bit about you.
Sure. Galesburg kid, so just a little bit east of here. Grew up there. Ended up doing my college career after high school in Galesburg at Monmouth College. Got my master's at Western Illinois University. Went into the corporate world for a short time, then ended up in law school where I got my doctorate, my Juris Doctorate, and came back to where I'm comfortable, where I know people, started practicing law. I'm not as interesting probably as your other guests, but I was an athlete. I have three sisters, four of us total, youngest of all of them, so 3 sisters, all older. It was like 3-to-1 odds I was going to be gay. Turned out I'm not. I have a wife who I adore and love very much named Morgan, and yeah, just spend the day trying to help people out in the criminal justice system.
Yeah.
What did you do in the corporate world?
So I did, I worked for, first and foremost, the Southwest Michigan Devil Rays as a corporate exec salesman. So essentially selling sponsorships for minor league baseball.
Okay.
And then I did that for, fall of one year into mid to late spring of the next, and then got an opportunity to work for Wells Fargo when my law school dreams kind of were temporarily put on hold. So I went to Wells Fargo, did home mortgage lending, essentially for subprime lenders, people who couldn't get regular mortgages, and did that from mid-spring of 2006, I believe it was, up to August. And then got the opportunity to jump ship, go back to law school, and I did it, and here I am.
Okay.
Yeah, so.
Where did the law school came? How did you have the desire to become a lawyer?
Yeah,
great. Is that a family thing?
Great question. Yes and no. My dad kind of instilled the thought in my head as a young man, and I still remember what he said to me. He said you should look at law school, because I was considering PhD and some other avenues coming out of high school, kind of forecasting what I wanted to do. And I remember asking him, like, well, why law school over a PhD? Because he has a PhD. And he said, well, with law, you can do anything. He said, if you have a law degree and you're the world's worst lawyer, you can go teach it at some university and make $75,000 a year and get summers off. You can work in a corporate world. You can be a practicing attorney. You can do a lot of things. And so that really kind of sunk in for me, and I started really focusing on it. Didn't do very well on the law school admission test to start. And I was actually one of the, I want to say it's 1% of the people who took it a second time and actually did worse the second time. So didn't think law school was really for me, and just the stars aligned later on in life, and I got in.
Yeah.
That was it. But it was kind of instilled in me just the opportunities it presented, and I just kind of followed through, man.
That's awesome.
How it happens. Yeah. Yeah.
So let's continue down that road, Steve. You just said there's so many different ways a lawyer or attorney could go, and you land in basically defense attorney, criminal defense, right?
Correct.
So what encouraged, or how did that connection?
So I grew up on the south side of Galesburg, and I didn't live necessarily there. I lived at Lake Bracken, which is kind of a nicer, at the time anyway, more affluent area, but I ran around on the streets, and I was friends with kids who were from kind of disenfranchised demographics, et cetera. And I got close with these people, and I realized, hey, these are my friends. These are the people I want to be around. These are the people I want to help, et cetera. And so when I got done with law school and I came back, I actually had the opportunity to be a prosecutor. I had the opportunity to be a civil lawyer or be a criminal defense attorney. And I like the people who I help. I know a lot of the people who need help, and it just kind of fit. It just kind of fit. And being from the area, name recognition is huge.
Yeah.
So knowing most of the people I was going to end up defending, because I grew up with a lot of them and I saw a lot of the shit they pulled, it was just the right move for me.
At the same time, it's got to be fun. I mean, it can't be a boring, dull moment. Crazy cases, crazy people. You come in and I'm saying, hey, man, I messed up, Steve. This is what I did. And
You
you're
ever
like,
heard
what?
that saying, truth is stranger than fiction?
No.
There is no job like mine where that is more true.
Yeah.
I mean, people come in and they'll tell me things, and I have to stop, and I think they're messing with me. And I'm like,
Right.
nah, you didn't really do that, did you? And they're like, no shit, man, this happened. And I'm
Yeah.
like, seriously? And it just is what it is. But it keeps it interesting. It keeps it fun. And I travel to 12 counties. That's always something that has kept it good for me and light. I'm not a kind of guy who could just sit in an office and drone over, text. I have to get out. I have to talk to people, go to court, think on my feet. That kind of stuff just kind of fits me.
Sure.
Okay. So, yeah.
In his Clark and Glasgow law office, you guys alone you're not your traditional. You guys do an amazing job through advertising. You got some solid commercials
They're
out
everywhere.
there. Yeah.
I see his face everywhere.
Yeah, the commercials, billboard, and you guys have fun with it. And that's
Sure.
one thing, you just mentioned. One of my favorites, you guys got the little wristband or koozie. It says, just because you did it doesn't mean you're guilty.
Correct.
All
That's
that.
right.
I mean, you guys do a tremendous
I
job
love
of
that.
not only having fun, but also, helping these people. And just because you made a mistake,
Sure.
I like to get into the schools and talk to kids as many chances as I get. And that's one thing I always say, you guys are still young. You may think like, oh, I'm a C and D student. This is who I am. None of this stuff labels you, right?
Correct.
I mean,
Yeah, absolutely.
So we all mess up. Some get caught. Some do stuff. Some keep doing stuff, whatever. But, just because you've had this incident happen to you, it doesn't mean that you're forever labeled or titled or supposed to be that guy.
No, absolutely. And as far as our focus is with respect to advertising or marketing, we just remember we're regular people, man. And that's what we have to impart or communicate to potential audiences. I've done a lot of the stuff I defend people on. I was just lucky enough not to get caught. Kids act out, kids do things without really thinking them through. And I look back on some of it and I'm like, damn, I'm lucky I'm here, because
Right.
I very easily could have some type of record attached to my name, not because I was some hooligan, just because you do things and you don't really think them through. Later on, you realize, oh, that's not good. So my master's degree, there's a focus on advertising and marketing. And so I took some of that into what we're doing now. And David's always been an interesting guy anyways. I don't know if it's intentional, but he is interesting. But what we do is we go into our advertising, our marketing with three things in mind. A, be memorable. Okay? B, be different. And C, be funny. When we can laugh at ourselves, what greater permission for other people to laugh at us? But what you're doing when you allow people to do that is we stick in people's head that way. We're not the stuffy stand in front of a bookshelf guys and adjust our silk ties and tell you, call us for your needs. That's boring. Now you start looking like everybody else.
Oh yeah.
Now our commercials, I'm sitting in a jail cell talking about, I might have been here before, things like that. That gets people to remember, and it reminds them when the times are tough. Call somebody who maybe has experienced what you experience.
Well, yeah.
And that's where I think we kind of fit in and vibe out with people who give us a shout. And we're not going to judge them, man. We've been there.
Right,
We've
right.
done it. So
Well, one of my favorites, and I have one of the Clark and Glasgow hoodies.
yeah, street cred.
I didn't
right there.
earn it. I
Yes.
was given one.
Street cred.
But now I wear it out, and I won't know the guy. But if he's got one on, it's almost like the motorcycle drivers. They see a motorcycle guy, and they're like, hey.
Yep.
I get that.
You get the head
They're
nod.
like, hey, man.
Yep.
Yeah. And
Yeah,
I'm like, well,
absolutely.
I didn't earn mine like you.
I'll get you one
but,
too.
but yeah, you guys have done a tremendous job marketing and
yeah.
branding yourselves within the community. You say 13 counties you travel,
Yeah,
or 12?
correct.
Yeah. I mean, that's
I'll go an hour in every direction, basically. I won't go across the river because we're not Iowa guys, but we'll go where our people need us. And as far as the the hoodie thing or or the T-shirts. David started that years ago, and I thought it was a great move. It's something that your people, something they can utilize. It's something that they can wear and be your walking billboards. And a lot of times, a conversation starter, like you're talking about. People are like, "Hey, man, how'd you earn yours?" Guess what they're talking about? They're talking about Clark and Glasgow at that point, and that's good for us.
For sure.
Right.
For sure. That's branding.
Yeah, it's fantastic. And again, you start adding in the things like the koozies. Even if you did it, doesn't mean you're guilty. And that's true. There are certain things we have to prove, or they have to prove. We have to upend. Our wristbands that you talked about, it's a business card. On one side it says irresponsible, on the other side it has our name and our telephone number, because it just is what it is.
Right.
But that's good.
Do you have any funny stories or crazy stories that you can tell us? I know that can be a little...
Yeah, without further incriminating, no names. But
No names.
So, yeah, ethically I can't divulge names, I can't divulge locations, but I would be, here's the bad part. I guarantee I've got 1,000 of them. But my job is so screwy that right now I'm like, none of them are really good because they're normal.
Right.
Until I start talking about it, and then people are like, "What? No!" And I'm like, "Well, that was a vanilla one, seriously." But God, I'm trying to think of any that really stand out. But you put me on the spot there. I'm trying to figure one out.
You don't need to remember.
Hey, I'll tell one about me that you talk about where like, oh shit, I didn't mean to do that.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So I was in high school, a kid in your class, Derek Sargent.
Oh, yes.
This kid, a friend of mine, and he says, "Hey, Lauren, come check this out." And he takes the fire extinguisher off the wall. And he pulled the pin out, and he pulls it just enough that it kind of goes, like when you breathe when it's cold.
Sure, yeah, sure.
And I'm like, oh man, let me see that thing. So I take the fire extinguisher and I take a newspaper and I wrap it around the nozzle, thinking I'm gonna just spray some of this little foamy white foam onto the paper and then look at it. Stupid, man. I pull that thing down and shoots the newspaper all the way across the classroom. We are in a classroom at Galesburg High School. Zero intention of like, let's mess this place up, you know?
Right.
Soon as it happens, I know I am in big trouble.
Yeah, you're in it.
And sure enough, it was criminal damage to private property being on the school.
It's probably state-supported property, which could have been a felony.
Yeah.
Think about
luckily,
that.
I was like 16 or 17. Mm-hmm. Knox County had the Lolita Junk Teen Court program.
Okay.
So I don't actually get like booked and arrested. I go through this teen court program, which like keeps it all off your record.
Sure.
And I'm like, I get kicked out of school for 10 days. I had 2 weeks to stay home. Now my parents had me stay home for about 2 months, but it was a complete mishap, right? And I messed up. It was so stupid. Now thank you, teen court, for sending me to good decision workshops where they taught me to think before you act, because your actions have consequences.
Well, let me tell you.
And look at me now.
When you started that, talking about Derek Sargent, I was like, I know where this is going.
It's not going to end well.
Hey, Derek was one of my really, really good friends since, gosh, I want to say the 4th grade or 5th grade. I saw him not long ago. Good dude, but yeah, he was always a wild man. He is the quintessential guy for acting first, and then after he's done, he'd go, ooh. Like it hit him, like maybe I shouldn't have done that.
Right.
And I couldn't tell you how many times I was right alongside of him. And like, damn, me either. What are we doing? But gosh, it's I should have thought a little ahead about having a a fun story to tell you.
Well, if one pops in your head throughout the rest of the show.
If it comes up, I'll remind myself to tell you.
Yeah.
But
So what's your goal for the near future? Do you guys want to expand the area that you guys work, or?
You know what? Honestly, we haven't really sat down and discussed goals. David's getting up there in age, and it's probably once a year he comes in and says, maybe it's getting time for him to kind of step down.
Okay.
In which case I'm thinking, okay, if he does, who would I bring in to try to fill the void? Would I try to handle that load myself, et cetera? But I can tell you this, it will not be expanding territory.
Yeah, okay.
I've been doing this for over 12 years, and I go through a new truck every 18 months.
Yeah.
Not because I want to, just the miles rack up. It's time to get rid of it. I travel a lot. So I don't see us extending any geographical territory. Whether or not we pick up any practice areas, I think that'll kind of depend on if David ever does decide to retire, who I would bring in his place. May want to do some civil law, may want to do something with family law, etc. But that's, as far as I'm concerned, that's a ways down the road. You know, David, for being his age, which I won't divulge on camera, but he's spry, he's staying after it. You know, he's an active guy, so we're just going to ride this thing out. I always tell him, I said, you know, I'm going to walk in one day and you're going to be cold in your chair. And you know what? You're staying there. I'm going to staple the phone to his head or tape it somehow and tell people, David's on the call right now. Why don't you come talk to me? I mean, but no, all joking aside, he's not going to retire anytime soon. So hopefully we don't have to bridge that gap anytime soon for right now.
That he is a go-getter, man.
He loves
stays it. Moving. Yeah,
he loves it.
Yeah.
And you know what? Here's what I always tell him. I say, David, listen, because I think sometimes it bugs him that I'm not in love with the law as much as he is, but it's damn near impossible, right? David Reed Clark would rather be David the lawyer than David anything else. David the community man, you know, David the best friend. He wants to be David the lawyer more than anything.
He's passionate about it.
He loves it. I mean, you'll come up on the weekends, the guy's sitting in there reading a book sometimes. I'm like, what are you doing? You got a client? He's like, no, but somebody might come in. Like, that's how much he likes to be there. And for me, I tell him, I'm like, David, this is what I do. This is not who I am. I do my very best job. I'm going to do everything I can because that's the promise I make to my clients. I always tell them I'll do everything I can to help you out. But I just don't have that. I don't identify the way he does. And I think that might be a generational issue potentially, but man, he loves it.
Yeah.
He absolutely loves it. And hey, tip my hat to him.
Totally.
Kudos. You know, they always say if you love what you do, you never work a day. That's that guy. Yeah. For sure.
So I think that's a good opportunity to transition even from the law. So outside, what do you spend your time? Hobbies? What do you enjoy doing when you can check out?
I'm a travel guy. I like new experiences. If I can go somewhere I've never been, eat something I've never eaten, experience a culture I've never experienced, Brazil.
Let's
I
go.
want to go there sometime.
Carnival.
We're going next summer.
Wild.
So
I've heard about it. I would love
cut.
to. I would love to. I love that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But that's what I do. You know, I like to travel. When I can't travel, it's spend some time with my wife. It's work out. I like to work out. You know, you brought it up before the camera started rolling. I still fight with people because that was one of my passions coming through law school. Kind of got me through law school was fighting.
MMA?
So, yeah. Yeah,
Nice.
do MMA. Yeah, Brazil,
Jiu-jitsu.
the home of.
Oh, yeah.
Are you a jits guy?
No, I don't fight, but
So jits in Brazil is like little
It's
league
huge.
in the U.S.
Yeah.
Man, it's you know, of course, Vale Tudo started down there. A lot of great Brazilian fighters, of course, everybody knows. I don't need to go into, but man, I love it. It absolutely got me through law school. I love law school. Not one friend from law school, not one.
Yeah.
There's only one guy I even keep up with who went to the same law school because he married my sister. It's my brother-in-law. He went to the same school I went to. He's the only one from my school that I keep in touch with. Now, I have probably 6 to 8 really good friends up there who used to beat me up regularly.
Yeah.
And I used to beat up, and my fight buddies are my guys, you know, so I still do
I
it.
think it's nice. It's good for you to have friends that comes from the competitiveness from sports.
Yeah,
you know?
absolutely.
I think that's that prepares you to basically be ready or you know, performance under pressure. I think everybody that comes from sports have it's easier for you to deal with your daily duties basically because you're already, you know, you're ready for performing under pressure, if that makes sense.
Yeah,
you know?
100%. We always used to say athletics is a microcosm of reality.
Yeah.
Right? So you learn teamwork. You learn
Exactly.
how to work for your goals. You learn how to
be a leader.
Deal with stress. You learn how to be a leader. You learn how to deal with failure, right? I've never met anybody who at some point in time in their athletic career didn't lose. You have to deal with it.
Yeah.
You know, and all those things prepare us for being better people. All that's going to shit now because they have that whole everybody gets a medal stuff that's going. I don't understand it for the life of me. But you make a great point, right? Your athletics are huge. Fighting, I would say, this is just me. one of the big mistakes people make when they go from college to law school, okay, they start kind of buying their own hype. Now, you ask most people around, I'm an arrogant bitch, all right? And I might very well fit that bill. But I can tell you this, I've never once looked in the mirror and said anything to myself about, yeah, you got this, or yeah, you're that guy, or yeah, never once. I look in the mirror, I see where my inferiorities are, I see where I need to work, etc. But yeah, it's when you're fighting as a law student, those guys keep you grounded. It didn't matter. I never got high on the horse is what I'm saying. I never believed my own hype. If I did start feeling good about where I was in life or what I was doing, I go to the gym that night and a couple guys who rode the city bus to practice are going to punch me right in the face. They don't give two shits, whether I'm going to be a Supreme Court justice someday. They are punching me in the face. They're going to kick the shit out of me, and that's that. And it keeps you just like, okay, this is what it is.
Well, let's talk. What about? So I want to hear your first MMA, your first fight. You're stepping in. How are you feeling? What's it like? It's got to be.
How
like,
would
oh
you
boy.
feel? You tell me this because this is going to surprise you. Go.
I know how I would feel.
Tell me.
I would. I'd probably be halfway lying to myself, like you got this. Don't look too stupid. Don't mess this up. I don't even know if you'd get me in the dang octagon, to be serious. But
now tell me this: after 15 fights, how do you feel?
I'd probably be pretty close to that same feeling. Why am I still doing this, man? But no, I don't know. I assume, you're going to start to get a little confidence and start to. I'm just thinking though that first time has got to be a little overwhelming, and then God forbid you win, then it's got to be. You see, I watch a lot of UFC, and that immediate, like when you realize you've won, that all that hard work, all of that effort, training paid off, and unfortunately it didn't for one guy, right? And that's like sometimes these people, and this, these fighters, they'll spend a year preparing themselves for something that's done in 12 seconds.
Oh yeah.
And you just got caught and you're done. I can't fathom the disappointment, frustration, and all of that.
So same idea? Would you be nervous going the first time and a little bit less time? 15?
So usually when it's my first time, is it the other guy's first time too? Or
probably.
No? Yeah.
Somewhat close to.
Okay.
Yeah,
I would try to maybe put some pressure on the other guy,
so
make the other guy scared.
This may trip you out. It's exactly the opposite.
Yeah.
Okay. My first fight where I ever walked in, I didn't know what I was walking into. Right. So the nerves weren't necessarily there because I didn't have any experience. What I knew is I was in a crowd and I was getting ready to go get into a fight. That's it.
Where was this at?
That's all you know. Well, the one I'll discuss was in Kalamazoo, Michigan. Okay, and it was in front of 23 or 2,500 people at the K-Wing Stadium. But you just don't know. Now, I asked you both how you would feel after fight 15. You said probably more confident. No, to me, it was just the opposite. I was more scared later in my career. And it's going to make sense when I tell you why. But A, you know what you're going into. B, you know what you put into it, and you're talking about the exuberance that you see from these fighters. You know what it really is? It's relief. You're done.
True.
You're done. You've worked a year for this one situation. You're in it. You're done. Even the guy who loses and is not happy with losing, there's a level of relief where you can finally breathe. Okay. But you know what you're walking into, and on top of that, when you're in fight 15, guess what the other guy across from you's in? Probably fight 15, which means he's probably pretty damn good. So you get more nervous realizing you're going against stiffer competition versus fight 1. Maybe the guy's a bum. You never know. Mine was even worse, my first fight, because I missed weight.
Oh.
Yeah, I was supposed to weigh in at 170. I weighed in at 100. They gave us to 172. I weighed in at 174 pounds. And I had to fight a guy who weighed in at 187. And by fight time, he was probably in his 190s.
Right.
And I was still at 174 pounds because I missed weight. Yeah. But, yeah, man, you're not sure what you're getting into. You walk in, and once the fight starts, it doesn't matter. Right. Once fight starts, it doesn't matter you're in front of a crowd. It doesn't matter what's going on because you're literally in a fight.
Right.
You ain't thinking about anything except for what's right in front of you, and that's the beauty of it. But no, man, the first one wasn't bad. After that, they got worse and worse and worse and worse to the point where you can't sleep at night. To the point where you're wondering like, oh, is this really what I should be doing? Yeah, it's crazy. It's crazy.
When you were fighting, did you think about going pro, or
actually
were you pro?
I did. I turned pro in 2010. But here's the interesting part. I turned pro. I never got a chance to debut.
Yeah.
So my coach comes to me, and I had finished law school. I graduated September of 2009. It was January of 2010. I was still up there because I was studying for the bar exam, up there being Michigan, where I went to school. And my coach comes to me and he's like, hey, man, there's this pro card in Detroit at the Palace at Auburn Hills where the Pistons play. I think they still call it the Palace, but you want to get in. There's a guy, he's a jits guy. Might be a good matchup for you. I said, yeah, what do I got to do? So I went, I did all the tests, did all the stuff, got my pro card, went, met the guy at weigh-ins, night before the fight. Had a piece of pizza with him, talked with him. We were ready to fight the next day. He didn't show up. He actually didn't show up for the fight. So they had a couple standby fighters. One of them was a guy from the same city where my camp was in Lansing. He said, give me anybody you got from 155 to 170. I don't care who it is. And so me having a guy back out, the promoter told him, we got one for you. He says, who is it? And then he said, where's he from? And he said, he's from Team Murcielago. And he goes, nope.
Didn't want it.
Didn't want it. Didn't want the smoke. Nate, probably not because of me. Okay, I'll be honest with you.
More of the camp?
The camp had a name. The camp had a name. So much so that later in that same night, they asked a second guy to fill in. He did the same thing. He said, hang on, let me call this promoter who works out of Lansing. He said, I got GLASGOW from Murcielago. And the promoter told him, nope. So he backed out. I had 3 guys back out in one fight, so I never actually got to debut.
Okay.
I got my pro card. I was ready to go, but by the time I had another couple fights lined up, I got news that I passed the bar exam, and it was time to be a lawyer.
Okay.
So if you ever come to my office, my pro card is sitting there framed. I was super ready for it, and then it got pulled out from under me.
So do you still spar and grapple and mess around a little bit?
Yes, as much as I can get people. Either one of you want to fight, come on out.
Yeah, you've actually said that to me before. Because you have a setup at the house, right?
Correct.
Yeah.
I have a detached gym that we've converted half of it to a little fight area. I've got a big wrestling mat on a stage. It's 15 by 30. And then I've got a wall that's padded. So
that's nice.
We get out and we get after it. Anybody who wants to fight, and I get people who know I do it, so they come up to me like, "Oh, I'll kick your ass." I'm like, "Great,
let's
would
go.
love to have you out.
Right.
Here's my address.
Right.
I'll drop you a pin. It'd be fantastic." Seldom do they show, but I get a couple guys who come on a regular, and I scrap as much as I can get people to.
I do enjoy the wrestling, grappling, jiu-jitsu of it. I've never really been struck in the face outside of like my brother, but we can work it, you know.
It doesn't hurt.
A buddy of mine started a jiu-jitsu academy in Rockford about a year ago.
Nice.
And is doing a great job. It's called Pride Jiu-Jitsu. If you ever, he's a great guy. Tony and Gar, I don't know if you remember Pete and Gar.
Yeah, I know the name.
Yeah, so they're all Galesburg, 3 brothers.
Okay.
But Tony, Marine, police officer, and now his own jiu-jitsu academy. I'd actually love to have him on the show at some point too. Great dude. But yeah, so anytime I get with him, I'm always like, hey, come on. And then within like 40 seconds, I'm like, okay.
He's twisting you up.
Oh, and he's going like 14% with me, But when you're that, I just like to learn. There's so much to learn. It's actually so cool.
Oh, sorry. Are you specialized on anything?
So I was primarily a striker.
Okay.
My gym, actually my training partner was an outstanding striker. Kickboxing, boxing, the whole bit. He was awesome. And so I think I kind of gravitated towards that just because that's what I was experiencing. Mm-hmm. I like to hit the ground. I'm okay if we want to break down into some jits. I'll roll with whomever. Don't mind it at all. Mm-hmm. But if I have my choice, I'm going to stand up with people until they tell me I need to go down. If I'm taking the worst of it on my feet, we can go to the ground. That's okay. I don't mind it. Been on my back a lot, have people on you. I did it for with that team in particular, Team Murcielago, I was with them for 3 years, and they are the predominant team in Michigan.
Okay.
So I went against D1 wrestlers. I've gone against big time jiu-jitsu guys. I'm okay with it. But yeah, if we can stand and throw some hands, that's I prefer that. I don't mind that at all.
If you had the opportunity to actually prepare for a fight at this point and actually fight, would you do that, or that's not something you wouldn't have the time for?
Yeah, good question.
How much of time commitment does a fighter needs to put in order to prepare for a fight?
I would say the answer to that lies in how much is he doing on the regular.
Okay.
Right, because the biggest thing on fighting, if you're going to go and compete, if you ask somebody asked me to get into a fight, compete for it, or excuse me, get ready for it and compete, my biggest question would be cardio. Okay. Because granted, most of this is skill work. That's what people don't understand about fighting. You know, they think you're going to go in there and just get punched. It's going to hurt, and you just have to hurt the other. No. This is a chess game with physical ramifications. That's really what it is. But make no mistake, if you're gassing, if you don't have the cardiovascular stamina, your technique's going to suffer. You're not going to be thinking straight because you're gasping for air, you know, and you're going to get worked. So I would say to you, if somebody came to me and said, hey, I want you to prepare for a fight and take it, I'm enough of a dumbass that I would probably say yeah, because I love to fight. I would tell you I need a good 4 months, and primarily I'm working cardio. Cardio. That's and don't get me wrong, it's not me going out and running a bunch of miles. Because there's nothing that's going to prepare you for fighting except fighting. Okay. You're up, you're down, your breathing is disrupted, whether you're exerting yourself on a move or where you're tight, isometrically defensive in posture, whether somebody's putting their hand over your mouth and trying to choke you out and you're trying to relax and regain your stuff, calm your heart rate. That stuff, the only way you can get used to that is doing it. So I would need, like right now, earlier question, how often do I do it? Twice a week at least. Wednesday night and one time on a weekend, because that's when I can get guys there pretty regularly. I would need probably 4 to 5 days a week of concerted work to get that cardio to where I need it.
Okay.
But yeah, I'd absolutely take it. I'm dumb enough that I'd take it. Yeah. I mean, it's just the way it is. I mean, when you stop looking at it like a fight and you start looking at it like it's just a competition. People have made comments. My eyes are really hooded and my bone structure is pretty defined because I've been punched in the face and kicked in the face a lot.
Yeah.
I don't mind that. It doesn't hurt anymore, right? That stuff doesn't bother me. So if somebody's like, "Oh, you can get in there and get punched," like, so.
I want to get to that point.
Well, the only way you do it.
You said Wednesday and one time.
The only way to do it's to do it. And I always laugh. I've done fairly well here recently. Obviously, being a lawyer, I don't show up in court a lot with black eyes and busted lips. And people say, "Oh, well, it's easy for you. You're not getting beat up." Well, no, I got beat up every day for 2 years. Well, every training day, which was 5 days a week for 2 years, every single time. I used to go to a class in law school, one eye half shut, gauze in my nose, busted lip. Oh yeah, I got the shit kicked out of me every training session for 2 straight years.
That's crazy. That's how you learn.
That's how you learn. It's the only way you learn. Like I say, it's a chess match with physical ramifications. You move the wrong way, you're getting hurt, right? And it hurts to start a little bit just because your body's not conditioned for it. Then you start getting used to it. Now it doesn't hurt. Now you're realizing, okay, this was the move. I gave in. I shouldn't have done that. But you're not worried about the pain aspect.
Okay.
And that's what's funny to me when you talk about guys who are conditioned fighters. They go out and somebody always wants to challenge you. Oh, I'll beat your ass. And you're like, all right. And
go ahead.
Yeah, I've had my ass whipped a lot. Let's get to it. I try not to do it now as a lawyer. I'm just like, nah, man. I'll tell you what. I just tap. You won, man. I lost.
When was your last fight?
Let's see. My last actual competition was close in time to when that guy backed out of my pro debut.
Okay.
Because like 08, 09?
Early 2010.
Okay.
January of 2010, I want to say maybe late January, early February.
Okay.
And the way I looked at it was, since I didn't debut, even though I had my fight card, my pro card, I looked at it as though I'm not technically a pro. I am, but I'm not, right? And so I took a fight after that. Funny story, actually, I actually got set up on that fight. So they put a ringer in on me. Now I happened to win, which was cool, but it was a different thing. But that was probably February of 2010 was the last time I competed. It was some dirty shit too.
Yeah.
It was bad. You know, I just had 3. I'm just going to tell you the story. I don't know if we have time, but
Yeah,
there
we
you
got
go.
it.
I had those 3 guys back out when I was supposed to debut, right? So I take this fight in February, and you show up and they have weigh-ins, they have fighter meetings where everybody gets together and everybody's kind of starting to look around, who am I going to fight, because it wasn't one of these situations where you knew a lot in advance. Well, I happened to know my opponent because we were going to be later in the card. We were kind of a featured bout. So I see him there and, okay, you know, giving him what's up. And we start getting ready, and I was after the second intermission. I think I was the 3rd fight. There were 5 after the second intermission. And the promoter walks in the locker room where I'm warming up. And he says, "Where's Glasgow at?" Kind of leaned around the corner. I'm like, "Right over here, Matt." Comes around the corner. He's like, "Hey, man, bad news. Your opponent had to leave." And this is I was just coming off of the situation where I had those 3 guys back out in Detroit. And so I look at my coach and I was like,
What's up?
Again, right? And the promoter goes, "Well, no, don't worry about it. I got a replacement already." And I immediately knew something was up. I'm like, wait a second. I've had situations you couldn't find anybody to jump in. You already got one? So I kind of look at my coach, and he kind of side-eyes me, and we both know that the move is on, right? And I'm like, all right, let me talk to my coach real quick. And I said, "By the way, who is it?" He tells me the guy's name, and I don't know. One of my teammates did know him. He's like, "I know who that is." And so I said, "Okay, Matt, give us a minute." So he steps out, and I talk to my coach. I said, "Coach, you know this is set up." And he says, "Yeah." And he goes, "But you know what? You ready to fight? You ready?" I mean, I was ready to go. I just come off of January where I was planning on that. And my teammate, Daquan, he fights in the UFC now, Daquan Townsend. Daquan comes up and he's like, "Man, he's sitting right outside. You want me to point him out?" I'm like, yeah, I want to see who he is. So I kind of poke my head out the door. He's like, "Right there." I said, "Man, that guy's been here since fighter meetings at like 4. Like, this is 9:45 at night. This guy's been here since 4. He got his hands wrapped. Like, he knew he was fighting from the jump." So Coach Joaquin was like, he's like, "Hey, man, you're ready. You might as well go do it." I'm like, all right. Told Matt. I said, "We'll accept it." Walk upstairs, getting ready to call us out. They call my name. I start going down, a little alley between the fans to get to the cage. And who's one of the first people I see as I'm walking down the alley? My opponent that had to leave, just standing there.
Oh, boy.
He knew too. He was never fighting, and I just was like, shit. But I mean, you're walking to the cage at that point. There ain't
Let's
no
go.
stopping. Yeah.
Right.
And then, of course, like I said, once you shut the door and that fight's on, this is your focus. Won't worry about the rest of that.
Did you win?
I did. I beat that guy's ass for 3 straight rounds.
Oh,
Went to a decision?
Yeah,
Good.
I did.
Got it.
Yeah, but it was good. It was
Yeah.
good. That was my last one, man. That was February, and then really had some trouble lining some people up. Of course, I was down in Illinois by that time practicing law, so I was having to travel back and try to make weigh-ins, and it got to be the point where it was like diminishing returns.
Okay.
It wasn't worth it. So then I just started getting with people down here, fighting for fun and helping them and getting as much as I could get from it.
So one question I keep thinking about, Steve, so you have an athletic background.
Yeah.
Baseball, basketball, MMA, passing the bar. You've had quite a journey, and I'm sure there's many people who played a role to help, coaches, leaders, mentors, and not necessarily your number one, but who's someone that you maybe think of from time to time and says, I wouldn't be here if it weren't for some time or energy that so-and-so invested in me. And like I said, not necessarily like your dad or number one or whoever. I'm just curious.
Yeah. Of course, my dad's at the top of the list just because he was that unrelenting force who was in my ear. He knew how to push my buttons. He kept me going when I wanted to be a lazy kid. And I still remember I'd take a seat, wake up at 4 a.m., I'd be at work. I'd work from 5:30 in the morning till 3:30. Then I'd go to baseball practice. At the end of baseball practice, I'd come home. I'd eat a short dinner, go to the gym. I'd lift weights and shoot baskets for about an hour each, roughly. And then I'd come home. And I can remember times where even after almost all of that, my dad would say, "Have you done your push-ups, sit-ups tonight?" I mean, I'm sitting on the couch finally after that day. He'd say, "You done your push-ups, sit-ups tonight?" I'm like, "Well, no. I just got back." And he would look at, I never forget it, he would do it all the time. He'd just look at me on the side of his eye and he'd go, those guys in Quincy, they ain't sitting around. Those guys in Rock Island, they ain't sitting around. And I'd get down, do my push-ups, but he was always that driving force. As for coaches beyond him, a couple that really stand out, Mark Reed, former Fighting Scott, football, actually he's in the Hall of Fame here, he's an All-American.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
He was a coach of mine, Arnold Gonzalez, and then Mike Sturgeon, Coach Sturgeon for the Legion team over in Galesburg, outstanding. He was every bit as hard as my dad, except for he wasn't my dad, so it was just an interesting dynamic. I actually would consider that guy to be like a second father to me.
Yeah.
Yeah, great guy, pushed you, never accepted excuses, never. If something went wrong, you know what? Deal with it. You could have done something better. That was his attitude. And if it wasn't for that, if it wasn't for the athletics, you know, I wouldn't be here, man. We all need that. We need that push.
For sure.
Which is why I say it's so sad that this everybody gets a ribbon shit is ruining society, because now kids are realizing, I don't have to work that hard and I can do this. Or I get the same thing he gets and he was working. Terrible, man.
It is.
It's terrible.
I do
it's
agree with
horrible.
that. I mean, it's so it just automatically now sucks for the guy who, like you said, you put in all this time and effort, and now you get this ribbon. And not that you even care about the ribbon, but the fact is, why did he get one too?
Sure.
And not that, you know, whatever. I guess, you know, if it makes a kid feel better, we all know. Take your ribbon, but we all know who did the work.
It's permeated society, Lauren. And I'll tell you the truth. Like our office, widely known, we charge a high rate. Okay, we generally get the results that dictate that. But if I had $1 for every person who said, every lawyer, oh, I wish I could charge what you guys charged. No, you don't. If I had $1 for that, I get an extra paycheck a month, right? But I'd look at it. No, you don't. Because, yeah, we charge that, but then we actually work to go get a result that dictates that. You want the money, but you still want your lazy ass ways of practicing law. It's amazing. And I mean, these are accomplished attorneys. These are people who have actually said that to me. I'm like, no, dude, do you go to 12 counties? No, you don't. Do you have to figure out what judge is seated at what court in what county on what day? And figure out, hey, I need to know this on procedure because this judge always, no, because it's too much work for you. So don't tell me you want what I got because you ain't willing to grind to do it.
I love that.
And it's just God's honest truth. This is not like an arrogant moment. This is the truth.
If you want to be different, you got to do things different.
Absolutely.
Right?
Or I'll get clients who call up and they're like, yeah, man, you're so much more than that guy. Okay, hire that guy. If you're just looking at numbers, go hire him. Well, I don't want him. I want you. Why? You know, but it's just this society has started to think in this just ridiculous way, and it's across the board, man. It's not just kids. I mean, it's definitely coming big time in kids, but
Yeah.
it's crazy,
It's
crazy,
true.
crazy.
What would you say is the main thing that would differ one lawyer from another one? That would make one lawyer better, a criminal lawyer better than the other one?
Good question. You've been thinking of that one, haven't you? Because that's a tough
You
one.
somewhat answered it a little bit there.
Yes,
Hard work.
you were answering that.
Hard work's a lot of it. The guy who's willing to go get it. And here's why I struggle. There's so many ways to define like successful cases, right? Some people just look at straight result. I had a guy who got 5 years in jail, 5 years in prison, frankly, on a case. Is that a win? Well, I don't know. Some people think 5 years in prison, that's not a win. But when you realize that at the time his possible offers were life or life, because he was to the age where had he gotten a minimum, he would have died in prison, or he goes to trial and loses, he dies in prison. He takes a deal, he dies in prison. So it was like, I ended up getting him down to 5 years. Matter of fact, just had dinner with him a couple nights ago. My wife and I went to Peoria and went out to dinner with him. He did 5 years. He's happy as, you know, a pig in shit. Yeah, I mean, but some people look at that, what's a win, what's not. So when you say what makes an attorney better, obviously there's a results component of that. There's a hard work component of that. There's a relatability component. And all those things probably factor in. If you get a guy who is coming in and he gets you a great result, but he's looking down on you the whole time like you're a criminal and I can't even believe I'm defending you. is he a better lawyer than the guy who gets the same results, but who you actually believe did everything he could and isn't judging you? Most people will go for guy number 2. Like, I don't want to be judged by that dude.
Right.
So then it's like, who's better? Well, I don't know. Probably the second guy, because most people will take him over the first guy, but they got the same results. So there's just there's a lot to it. It's a difficult question to answer. I think successful lawyers and the ones who want to make a difference have a couple things in common: hard work and a willingness to go get it. That's one. 2 is a relatability and humanistic side. Mm-hmm. Okay, I told you I don't have a single friend from law school. True. I can still go up there to this day, which I'll go up in November. I always swing by my law school. I can still tell you the custodians' names. I can still tell you all the front securities names. When I walked in, I went up there roughly a year ago. As soon as I walked in, Hank, the lead security guy, was like, Steve. I mean, I haven't seen this guy in 10 years. But because I always talk to him, et cetera, that humanistic side and realizing, hey, man, these are people. And those are the people who are going to be on your jury. So your ability to talk to them and still be in that headspace with those people is a huge factor. And then, of course, you got the intellectual side. You have to know what you're doing. Mm-hmm. Don't get me wrong. I mean, I haven't talked about that enough. I take it for granted because most people, well, not most, all people who are lawyers have passed the bar. So they've demonstrated a level of competency. Is that going to carry the day? Nah. Mm-hmm. I know a guy who is extremely bright, struggling to make a living.
Yeah.
Because he can't relate to people. People don't hire him because when they go and talk to him, they leave with that like, ugh.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And he's a smart dude. But hey. So when you go back to your question, what makes you a good lawyer? Is that guy a better lawyer than me? Maybe. He's probably a smarter guy than me. Can he get the clients? No. If you don't have clients, it's hard to prove how smart you are because you ain't winning any cases. Mm-hmm. So it's like, it's super difficult to answer that.
You did answer well. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I got a question. You're about to be put in the electric chair.
Yeah.
And it's your last moment on earth. They say, Steve Glasgow, what do you want to eat? Your last meal.
Oh, interesting.
What are you going with?
I'm a Galesburg kid, man. I'll tell you what I'm going with. I'm going with Coney Island hot dogs. Okay. I am a Coney. I just had lunch there with my nephew. He's back. He's a pilot, and he said, "Hey, Uncle Steve, you want to go grab some lunch?" I'm like, "Yeah." You know where I want to go because my wife doesn't eat that. So I went over there. I smashed out 3 of them, and I'm sitting there. I was like, "Man, Drew, I could eat 3 more of these." Mm-hmm. He said, "I love it."
Do you love the standard Coney dog?
Oh yeah.
Are you familiar with the Mud Puppy?
Is that like with the chili with no beans or something?
No, it's the cheese dip. You dip the tortilla chips in chili. It's basically like the Coney meat with some probably melted Velveeta cheese.
So it's just add cheese,
and it puts right on top of the Coney dog. Oh my goodness,
that sounds good.
That's my favorite.
No, you can't. Hey man, you can't mess up perfection. The original Coney is my thing.
I get one of each, but yeah, that's funny. What would you be? What's your last meal on earth? You're about to die in the chair.
I don't know.
What are you getting?
Now that I'm thinking, I don't know. One thing that I really like is the Dairy. I can't say the name of a Dairy Queen strawberry cheesecake blizzard.
That's your meal?
I mean, I would definitely get ice cream.
He's gonna die.
But I don't know the food. I eat anything, literally. Like
I have noticed this guy does eat about anything.
Yes, yeah. But what about you?
I'm from the Midwest, man. I want meatloaf, some potatoes, and this is gonna throw it off a little bit, but I have to get at least a handful or 2 of Cheez-Its before I die.
Do you really?
I live on Cheez-Its, Steve. I should be sponsored by them.
Were you like a former pothead back in the day or something?
I don't know. It might not even be former. I don't know. But I love Cheez-Its, man. I literally live on cheese. I got them in my glove box of the car. I mean, people make fun of me about it, but I stay eating Cheez-Its.
So wait, you keep Cheez-Its in your car?
I have a glove box, little packs.
So your car smells like feet.
No,
it
smells like
they're
Cheez-Its.
not open packs.
Yeah, but like no matter what, some of that gets into the air. You know that.
No, the small little pack.
I know that.
That's like my survival kit. If I get snowed in and I'm like stuck on the side of the road, I gotta have.
For you?
I can't go 4 hours without Cheez-Its.
So here I got one for you too. How many people you had sitting in this chair?
You're our 4th. right?
Yeah, fourth or fifth.
All right. Who has been like the most off the wall, hit you with some answers where you guys were having a great time, didn't realize? I want to say interesting, but I don't want to say that disrespectfully to anyone.
Right.
But who's one that like you're like, damn, if we could have 10 of him, we'd have a hit. Like, or her, you know.
I know
what I mean?
my
Like,
answer, at least
No,
so
you go
far
ahead.
with
Yeah,
what
give
we've
it,
done.
give it.
I mean, Jordan Knight was
Okay.
a ball of fun.
Yeah.
Very interesting. You know, I mean, he literally, I just saw him on his social media on Sunday. He's a pastor. On Sunday. Steps up, he's got his tattoos, like, you know, plugs. He's got a Steelers jersey on. He takes a terrible towel and throws it over the little podium there.
He's awesome.
Yeah, and he's about, you know, it's not traditional. I grew up going to church. My folks basically made us, but you talk about like dry. You know, I mean, I'm getting the heavy head, falling asleep. I don't think you're doing that with the Jordan Knight service.
Nice.
You know?
Nice.
And what I really love about that, the whole thing, and you have to check out the episode. It's a good one.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah,
But
definitely.
like I mean, gosh, you talk about someone shows up at church and they're like, who's this guy?
Right.
Where's the
Like,
pastor at?
Yeah.
It's the fill-in. They brought in the alternate.
Did the guy sub out? Or, so it's just very interesting and such a great mindset of just positivity. You talk about challenge, get up today, go do something great. You know, like, it just was a very interesting.
That was his message, though. Get up and do something great.
I mean, yeah, that's kind of what I mean. He talks about. It just his overall mentality, really. You know. But yeah, it was good. He was an interesting dude.
It's a great episode. I think it was the first one, right?
It was.
Yeah.
Same answer.
Yeah, same answer.
Okay.
He's awesome,
But
Jordan.
like I said, we've only had like 5 so far. So
No, still,
This
and
one is going great too. This one will be a lot of views too.
I'll tell you this: that guy's got an advantage on me because I'm more of like an incremental guy. All right, I'm the take the little bites out of you until I'm finished. I'm not the do something great, swallow it in a whole. I'm like, be 1% better today. That's my thing.
Right, for
sure.
No matter what, and essentially what it boils down to: be better than you were yesterday in some regard. How you treat people, how you conduct yourself, work you do at the office, quit with the bullshit. You know, if you know, our phones always tell us, oh, you've been on your phone by how much time this week or whatever.
Yeah.
Reduce that by 1% every week. Try to, if your phone will report it, reduce by 1% per day.
Sure.
Quit dicking around on social media. Go out and make something good happen.
For sure.
You know, for yourself, if not for other people. But yeah, I appreciate those guys who do that kind of like be great. I guess I'm just, I don't know if I have greatness in me. I know I have improvement in me.
Sure.
I don't know if I have
But
greatness.
I like
in
that.
me.
Just be better. And if you
Yeah.
are that 1% better, I mean, listen, man, change often takes place with baby steps.
Sure.
You
Yeah,
know,
absolutely.
if it's too drastic of a change, you're going to be in shock, not like it, and most likely want to get back to your comfort zone.
Yeah.
Most of the time. Because even positive change makes people feel real uncomfortable, and a lot of times they don't like it. I know I got buddies, we all have buddies, you see like they're really turning things around. And all of a sudden you're like, what did you do that for? He's right back.
Sure.
A lot of times it just feels better. It's safe over here. That wasn't feeling too good.
Well, and man, you also see the number of people who are haters on that. You know,
yeah.
rather if they see a friend rising up, like there's a level of I don't know if animosity is the right word. Certainly a level of jealousy, things
Yes.
like that. But if you're taking those little bites, I think people feel more comfortable. Not to say you should judge yourself by that, but it's certainly something to keep in mind, not to make other people feel inferior. So.
Yeah.
What is it? The journey of 1,000 miles begins with one step, kind of thing. Just a little bit at a time.
Right.
Yeah.
So
Huge.
whatever, anyone out there, addiction, weight loss, whatever, motivation,
Yeah,
anything.
absolutely.
Just start with like, today, I'm going to not do this. Or I'm not going to smoke just today.
But
Don't worry about quitting them forever, whatever.
You know what mine was? And this was started me on it, was I saw this movie where this guy could like hear it's called What Women Want with Mel Gibson.
I remember it, yeah.
Okay, so he can hear what these chicks are thinking as he's going by him and whatnot. And there's this little intern who no one pays attention to. And he can hear that she has like suicidal thoughts going on in her head and she's really kind of having some problems. And she drops a bunch of stuff and everybody kind of walks by and she's in her head muttering things that are, not so hot for herself. And he leans down and he helps her pick it up. And the change that he made in her life, just with that little tiny thing, was enormous, right? I started right there. I would go through drive-thrus. People would say, welcome to Taco Bell. how are you doing? I'll be like, good. How are you today? You ought to hear people stumble over that question because
Taco Bell.
no one asks.
Taco
And
Bell
they're like,
usually
I'm
does
good,
that.
Thank you.
They go, "How are you today?"
Yeah.
And I'm the same. I go, "I'm good. How are you?"
Yeah, you
And you're
always
right.
ask in return. That's where I
That's
started.
true. That's true.
Yeah, and you hear people trip over that question because they're not used to anyone taking 2 seconds to ask them,
Right.
or just seeing somebody out, be like, "Hey, you doing okay? Are you all, you see somebody who's got despair on their face, just are you all right? Are you good?" Takes 2 seconds out of our day. It can make a lifetime's worth of difference to somebody else. And that's honestly, God, where I started. I was like, I'm going to do that.
Some of that too, I think, is a Midwest thing, and I say that because I moved out to Arizona. I mean, in California, any big metropolitan area, maybe, but
Yeah.
everyone is like, boom, 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 tunnel vision, gotta go. And when I was in Arizona, you knew real quick someone in Michigan, Iowa, Indiana. I mean, you'd make eye contact and even just go hello or hold a door.
Yeah.
I mean, that stuff. And I'm not saying no one on the West Coast does that.
No,
But
it's a generalization, and
Yeah.
it's a generalization because it's true.
Right.
I've been to those places too where you could be walking. Yeah, you could be on fire on the middle of the street, and half of them are gonna walk right by you. Be like, just don't burn me. They
Right.
don't care. They
Talk
just
about
do
West
it.
Coast.
Just wherever.
Anywhere.
Yeah,
New York,
yeah.
the same way.
Generally, it's on the coast, and I don't know if it's so much a coast thing as much as it's there's a level of anonymity out there because the populations are so great. So no one takes time to get to know you, right? And in the Midwest, generally, we have less population, so you're going to see people more than once.
Yes.
Taking that. So I think maybe it's that, but yeah, I agree with you. They go to those big areas.
Yeah, I would say it's because of the big cities that
Yeah.
tends to happen.
Right.
Yeah, and people are in their own. Nowadays, it's even worse. People are in their own world so much. They're in
Staring.
social media, all that kind of. Horrible. What about like in Brazil though? I mean, those people seem really nice, but I don't know. Rio's huge, right?
Yeah, I mean, Brazil is a place that people we receive a very well the tourists. So tourists like Brazil when they go there. I would say the people in Brazil in general are great. The main problem in Brazil is the security.
Okay.
So yes, because of the government, a lot of corruption, it ends up affecting the actual population. They don't pay the police like they should.
Okay.
They don't pay the teachers, doctors like they should. So a lot of this stuff ends up falling on the population. So a lot of robberies in some places. Of course, there are great places like Rio.
Yeah.
Rio is my favorite city in the world by
Really?
far.
Nice.
Yeah,
Nice.
it's the most beautiful city. People are great, but of course there are parts of Rio that you can't go there.
Yeah, of course.
The cops can't go there either. So like, there are places that the criminals,
favelas?
the favelas. Oh,
Yeah.
you already know.
Yeah, I'm with
So
you.
the favelas are communities. Have you heard about the favelas? Communities
Basically like
that
projects.
the drug dealers protects the whole community. Cops can't get close. If cops get close to there, they'll die. Not the drug dealers will not die. The drug dealers will definitely kill whoever is getting close to them.
Yeah.
So it's like in every big city in Brazil, there's at least one favela. So and the favelas is just a result of the corruption.
Sure.
There's literally no reason why the Brazilian army doesn't go in each favela one by one and end with that situation. They can do that, but something's holding them from doing that. So
Sure. Yeah.
we wonder what's.
But in general, you don't think that it does or it doesn't affect like people's attitude towards one another down there?
No, I think people respect a lot each other. So yeah, I wouldn't say. I mean, big cities, of course, there are places that there is a bigger population. People don't worry about each other like in small towns, if that makes sense. So yeah, you just want more in a big city, and in small towns is different.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
Favelas.
Favelas.
Yeah.
Yes.
And a lot of tourists, especially Americans, they go to Rio and they want to go to the favelas and see how it is.
Just see what it's like.
Yeah.
You can't? Or
Yeah, there is one favela in Rio that you can actually go on the top of the hill and see the whole city, to see the beach, and you're literally inside of the favela.
But you can't go there.
You can, like tourists, there's one favela that you can go in there,
Okay.
and the drug dealers will not do anything to you. The cops can't go there still.
But what happens in one of these if you're like, you know someone there? Say you want to come visit your aunt or whatever. Like, I can't go?
If you were born there or have family in the favelas, they won't do anything to you. Nobody will ever rob someone or do something to someone that didn't do anything in the favelas.
Okay.
You know, unless you are a tourist that's going to the wrong favela and they will rob you for sure.
Right.
But of course, a Brazilian that wasn't born there going to a favela, that won't go well
Yeah.
either. You know. So-
Gotcha.
You'd never heard of that, huh?
No, I've never heard of that.
Yeah, I've always heard how welcoming Brazilian people are. Yeah, of course, like you said, like anywhere, doesn't matter where you're at, you can get into some hot water.
Yes,
no
for
doubt.
sure.
The favelas being that, but it's interesting, man.
Steve would walk into one. They're like, "Get out of here! We're gonna punch you in the face." And he's like, "I like it."
That's
man."
why I'm here.
That's why I came here.
Yeah. And it's just like Chicago. I like Chicago, but if you go to south side of Chicago, it's a completely different thing, right?
Right.
So, but Chicago is one of the cities that I like the most as well.
Man, I hate Chicago.
I
Yeah.
do too.
Oh,
You
I
can give me
love
a
it.
free house downtown. I'd probably.
I would
never-
live downtown Chicago.
Would you really?
I love it. Yeah. I mean, I was born in a city a little bigger than Chicago. I was raised, so
Sure.
I'm used to big city.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, I love
If
it.
I got to drive around 20 minutes looking for a parking spot, this place is not for me.
My
I don't
favorite
like
part
it.
about Chicago is leaving.
Leaving.
Yes.
I say that all the time, Steve. I've never known we had that in common.
Yeah.
Why don't you like Chicago? Is the population? Is a lot of people?
Yeah,
Or
pretty much.
Okay.
And to me, at least, the experience I've had with Chicago, and even I should say greater Chicago Metroland area, because it does include some of the offset suburbs, but they're almost like, they almost act, the people who I'm talking about, again, generalities, not everybody, the people who I'm talking about, they act like it's New York, but West. You know, they're like, hey, what are you looking at? You know, you're like,
Yeah.
come on, guy.
Right.
Like, yeah,
I'm
that's,
from Chicago.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And that's the thing that bugs me, because it's unnecessary. Like, this isn't New York, man. You're in the Midwest.
Yeah.
You know,
Well,
come
on
on.
top. I remember in
That's
college.
me. But that's what it is.
Yeah,
right? It's
yeah.
people's attitudes.
Right. And
Really.
this is, like I
That's
said, a
fair.
generalization. But I
Of
know
course.
in college, when usually I would meet someone in Champaign, and they just would give me like the negative vibe,
Yeah.
you know, and I'm like, and then they say they're from Chicago, but it's really one of these like suburbs that
Sure.
are, you're not even in Chicago.
Yeah,
You know, you're in
exactly.
Wheaton.
Yeah.
You're
You're from Crystal Lake. Stop.
Yeah,
Just
stop
stop.
it. Just stop it. You're not from Chicago, man. But anyways, to each their own. Chicago, it's a great place to visit. It's got some great food. It's cool. But it's not for me.
Yeah,
It's just
me
not
either.
my cup of tea.
And I met
no
my
offense,
wife.
Chicago.
She lived out in Las Vegas for 6 years. And the transformation from Las Vegas, because a bunch of California people started going to Vegas because it was cheaper to live, basically. Now it's California East, man, and it's horrible. I hate going to Las Vegas now.
Yeah.
I used to go out there all the time and see her when she still lived there. We would still go out there and visit. She has friends, she has family out there. And it was fun for a while, but now it's just like, this place sucks.
Yeah.
Oh, it's terrible.
Is there a city in the United States that you would like to live?
Ooh, good question. You know what? If I had to choose the United States, I would tell you I would either live in Miami or I would probably live in Utah, probably like Park City.
Okay.
I'm a big snowboarder.
Yeah.
I love to snowboard in the winter. If I'm not in the office in the winter, I'm flying down a mountain at 60 miles an hour, loving life. But Park City's awesome for that.
Yeah.
Do you snowboard? Probably not. You're from Brazil.
I don't snow. I've tried. It's too hard for me, and I don't like this. I don't like the cold. in
That's
general.
what's hard for you, isn't it? You fall, you land in the snow. You're like, yeah, this ain't for me.
Not for me.
No, it's
But I love Miami.
Miami's great.
Oh, yeah.
I got
Yeah.
friends who are from there, and heavy Hispanic population, which super welcoming people.
yeah. Oh,
My
yeah.
friends are all Cubans down there. A couple Mexican guys, but mostly Cubans. Nicest people I've ever been around from a generalized community standpoint, man. They invite you in, you know, mi casa es su casa, that kind of stuff.
Sí, sí.
Granted, it's a little more Spanish than with the Cuban dialect, but same thing. Yeah, man, they mean it.
Oh yeah,
They bring you in.
there are a lot of
and-
Brazilians there too.
Yes. So I went to a place called The Knife, which was a Brazilian steakhouse down there. And I think every Brazilian for about 50 miles was in there. Because everybody's speaking Portuguese, but super nice, great food.
The type of steakhouse that you have the green and red.
Yes.
side,
Yeah. They bring you a bottle of wine and all the meats you can eat. They just bring it out and you have the red. You ever been to one?
No, I've only seen I've looked up restaurants, and watching the experience from a YouTube video. But yeah, I've seen it.
So in
Like,
Brazilian steakhouse, you put you have a card. So one side is green, the other one is red. If you leave it green, they keep bringing you
Bringing
meat.
you food. Red mean red light. Stop.
Yeah.
Stop. I'm full.
Right.
But they brought you a bottle of wine and all the meat. You go prime rib. You want it? Sirloin? Yeah, you want it? And it's just
keep
keep
it
it
coming.
going.
Yeah.
Yeah. When
And
you leave, you want to kill
I would
yourself
like to
because
go.
it's freaking.
Oh, yeah,
you're
it's good.
stuffed. But
You
it's
got my
awesome.
attention now.
It is
Yeah.
awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, but great people. Great people. Brazilian people are the same way.
Oh,
Yeah.
thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now tell me this: do Brazilian people technically consider themselves? I know how a lot of the world looks upon you, but do Brazilian people consider themselves part of the Hispanic community, or how does that work?
We are Brazil is considered we're considered Latinos.
Okay.
But a lot of people don't consider us Latino. I would say, not Hispanic, but because we don't speak Spanish. It's the only country in South America that doesn't speak Spanish. But we are considered Latino because we're in Latin America.
Gotcha.
So, but yeah, I would say Brazil is the only different country in South America because all the other ones speak Spanish.
Right.
And
Does Colombia speak Spanish?
Yeah,
Do they?
Spanish too.
Okay, but they have a little bit different dialect, right?
Oh, they all speak Spanish, Argentina, Colombia, Chile, Bolivia, but they do have different accents.
Okay. Yeah, because one of my buddies from Miami is married to a Colombian girl, and they flew down there to see the family, and he said he struggled to stay up with
It's
their
different.
conversation.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
and he's fluent as hell, speaking it his whole life. That's interesting.
Yeah, the Spanish from Mexico is not completely different, but different accents
enough.
for
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Compared to
like my
Colombia,
Mexican
Argentina.
friends and my Cuban friends, there's some times where they, you could see they're struggling a little bit when they're speaking in their native tongues.
Right.
They get it more than I get it, but yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
But great people.
Yeah.
Yeah. The Latinos, Hispanics in general, Latinos in general, whatever you want to call it.
Warm people.
Yes. And I'll tell you what. So I was telling you about my fight buddy in Michigan. You do not want to fight Latinos. Okay, I'm just going to tell you that right now.
But they are wired different, man.
They-
I
and-
mean,
and
the
it's-
ones I encounter.
Especially Mexicans. Okay, and that's what my buddy was. John Villegas. If he's ever going to watch this, salute. Awesome. And
Yeah.
fighting spirit like nothing I've ever seen. I swear to God, he's got 4 lungs inside of his chest. He never gets tired. He's tough as hell, keeps coming, and then as soon as it's over, nicest guy you've ever met.
That's
But it's amazing. But yeah, I've always had such respect for that community, and then to have friends in it, and then to actually have experiences with them, like they open their house to me, or I'm throwing hands with my buddy, and just it's like, God, why couldn't I have that in me, man? I'm as white as it gets. I would take that in a heartbeat.
That's fine.
Okay, he was doing push-ups when Quincy wasn't.
Right, right. He would outwork everybody. That guy's nasty.
Yeah.
And he's still that way too.
That's
I
what's
still
up.
fight with him when I can, but he's something else.
Well, that's cool. Well, Steve, I greatly appreciate you coming and joining us, man.
Hey,
the
thanks
Talk
for
About
having
It
me.
podcast.
That was
Appreciate
awesome,
you guys.
Yeah, thank you so
Appreciate
much.
you having me. This
I know
has been
there's
good.
100 other things you could have done today, but I appreciate you doing this, for real.
Well, I'm not going to lie. The idea of coming over and talking about myself for 40 minutes actually did not sound so good to me, but you guys have made it great, man. A lot of back and forth, and I appreciate it.
Good.
It's been good
Thank
hanging
you,
out.
Steve. Yeah.
Thanks for having
Good.
me.
Hey, it's the Talk About It podcast. Steve Glasgow, Victor Dantes, and myself, Lauren Fulmer. Thank you for watching this episode of the Talk About It podcast.
I'm Victor Dantes.
I'm Lauren Fulmer.
And we would encourage you guys to subscribe to the channel. And don't forget to hit the bell. It's going to be right below the video. So you
Hit the
guys,
bell.
so you know when the next episode is up. All
We
right?
appreciate all the support.
Thank you.